We will read from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is Madhya Leela and chapter 19, which is entitled Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructs Srila Rupa Goswami. I think many of you know that Rupa Goswami is the main spiritual leader in our tradition. He is the main follower of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so this is one of the texts which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke to Rupa Goswami, and it is describing how the process of devotional service works. It's very interesting, and we will share the screen with you so that you can see the text as well. So we'll read Bengali. If there are any Bengalis listening to us this afternoon, I hope you will forgive my reading, imperfect reading of Bengali. Nishidachara kutinati jiva himsana lapta puja pratistadi yatta upasaka ganam. Translation: some unnecessary creepers growing with the Bhakti creeper are the creepers of behavior unacceptable for those trying to attain perfection, diplomatic behavior, animal killing, mundane profiteering, mundane adoration, and mundane importance. All these are unwanted creepers. So what this verse is explaining, that in order to advance spiritually, we have to grow our creeper of bhakti, creeper of love for Krishna. But this creeper is watered by hearing and discussing about Krishna. And yet there is a problem, because in the heart where the bhakti creeper is growing from the seed, there are other seeds as well stored from many lifetimes. And these are not spiritual but material seeds. And these seeds, they also grow because we water them also at the same time. And these are listed in this particular verse. So Nishedachar, behavior not to be exhibited by others trying to become perfect. Kutinati, jiva himsana, unnecessarily killing animals or the soul. Labha, profit according to material calculations. Puja, adoration achieved by satisfying mundane people. Pratishta, adi, becoming an important man in material calculations, and so on. So all these unnecessary creepers are growing in the heart when you practice bhakti. Very interesting. You're developing your bhakti, but these creepers, they also grow. So Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, there is a certain pattern of behavior prescribed for those actually trying to become perfect. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we advise our students not to eat meat, not to gamble, not to engage in illicit sex, and not to indulge in intoxication. People who indulge in these activities can never become perfect. Therefore, these regulative principles are for those interested in becoming perfect and going back to Godhead. So we'll stop here and we'll say a few words about this statement by Srila Prabhupada. And meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can always put them in the chat window and we can deal with them, try to deal with them as they come along. So, we are spirit souls, but we are conditioned by the material body. And material body has 4 basic functions, which are shared functions between us as human beings and animals. And the Mahabharata gives a list of this and explains that we are like animals, right? Human beings are also defined as social animals. At the same time, we are different from animals. And so what is the common between us and animals, and what distinguishes us from animals? So Mahabharata says, Ahara Nidra Bhaya Maitunamcha. That there are 4 things which are basics of our existence in this world. Ahara means eating. Nidra, sleeping. After eating, you always want to sleep, right? Natural instinct. And bhaya means fear. So need for security. And maithuna means sexual impulse, sexual desire. And so then Mahabharata says, Etanya etat pashubi naranam, that these tendencies are common for humans and animals. But then it says that there is one difference. Dharma hitesha adhika vishesha, that this difference, vishesha means difference. What makes us different from animals is dharma. Dharma means spiritual advancement, spiritual life. Dharma hitesha adhika vishesha. And then the last line says, Dharmina hina pashubi naranam, that if there is no dharma, if there is no spiritual practice, then human being is no better than animal. And so we can see that, for example, Srila Prabhupada, he insisted that devotees follow 4 regulative principles, right? And so he is listing them here. No meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication. So, and we can see 4 pillars of animal life and 4 regulative principles. Why do we follow 4 regulative principles? For example, eating. Human beings can eat anything and everything, right? But human beings are not really meant for these things. As we see that present pandemic, I don't know if many of you heard Shivaram Maharaj short address. He's putting these short addresses in the media, and he explains that present pandemic and even previous pandemics, they are all coming from animals, right? And actually, why all these infections or viruses coming from animals? Because human beings are really exploiting animals. And they, yeah, either have animals as pets or eat animals, etc., etc. And so all these things come from animals, but eating animals, human beings are not meant to eat animals. And it's a bad habit, right? That's why you can see that A small child, if you give him like fruit and piece of meat, it's no brainer what the child will choose, right? Child will never choose piece of meat. So, because it's not natural food. And then in the beginning, parents have to like push meat onto their children until they become habituated to it, and then it becomes bad habit. So it's very unnatural thing. Our bodies are not even meant to eat meat. That's why we need to do so many things to process meat, right? If it would be natural for us, we could be like tigers eating raw meat, but we cannot do that. We have to, cook it. Fruits, you don't have to cook. Vegetables, just makes it, take it, right? But with the meat, there is so much manipulation is done just to make it kind of suitable. And so, in order to control our first and foremost instinct, which is eating, we follow these regular principles that we do not eat meat, fish, eggs, all these products of killing, right? That we don't eat dead corpses because human beings are not meant for that, eating dead corpses. And so, yeah, we are meant to only take vegetarian products, and we need to spiritualize them by offering them to Krishna, and then we take that as prasad. And so then nidra, sleeping. You can see that if people take intoxications, for example, they are very prone to sleep, right? So that's why, in order to control sleeping, and people are sleeping a lot. I mean, I remember myself, of course, when I studied, I was forced to get up earlier, relatively, but after I finished my studies, my schedule was I would never wake up before noon. Noon was my waking up time. So, so people sleep a lot. Why? Because they are always intoxicated. They take all these intoxicants, drinks, drugs, etc., which are carrying energy of tamas, ignorance, and so they become absorbed in that, and so they have to sleep a lot. And we can see devotees, because they not taking any intoxicants, they can manage just to have little sleep, 6 hours. And if devotees are advanced, like Srila Prabhupada, Bhakti Thakur, you can see 1-2 hours, that's enough for them. And the rest of the time they dedicate to serving Krishna. And then bhaya, fear, need for security. What's the best security? Money, right? If you have money, you feel very secure. So why people indulge in gambling? What are they hoping for? To win a lot of money, right? So that they can have a lot of security. So, and basically they indulge in gambling, and instead of winning, they're losing a lot of money. Who is winning? Mostly gambling houses are winning, right? And sometimes they give someone to win just to advertise that yes, it is possible. But then those who are winning, they're also like, there are so many horror stories what happened to those people who won gambling prizes, and regular story that they would just indulge in unrestricted luxury, and they basically, it's kind of amazing stories how quickly and how uselessly people can burn huge amounts of money, right? Because they buy things they don't really need to impress people who don't really care. And so then, yeah, they waste all this money, and then because they get habituated to this very luxurious lifestyle, they start borrowing money because other people borrowed money from them, and so they expect, okay, that those money will come back and I'll pay with that. But those who borrowed, and you know how it goes. In Russia, we say that you borrow somebody else's money for some time, right? Then you have to use your money forever. Not very exciting. That's why people trying to avoid paying back. Borrowing is easy, but paying back is difficult. So that's one thing actually to learn, that you ever lend money to anyone, just you can understand that most likely they will not pay you back. So that's only lend as much as you don't mind to lose, right? Don't have these false hopes that, okay, they will pay me back. So basically, yeah, they expect people to pay them back, but people don't pay back, and then they end up in debt. And yeah, it's like many times they end up in prison, because then trying to kind of maintain luxurious lifestyle, crime, all kind of very unhappy stories connected to gambling. And gambling is actually creating worse addiction than drugs. That's very interesting phenomenon. Even drugs cannot create so much addiction as gambling. And there are many people who, losing so much money with gambling, and they want to stop and they cannot, because psychologically they become so addicted to it and they cannot stop. And then, yeah, Maithuna, sex, urge, sex drive, and then we have understanding that illicit sex, or sex which is not um, within the marriage bonds, is sinful, and even within the marriage bonds, sex is really recreation. And so then devotees follow these principles, and actually we, first and foremost benefit is that we become free from these animal propensities, so we start living like human beings. And second, we save ourselves tons of trouble. And let me see if you can help us. Let's start with meat eating. Can anyone tell what kind of troubles we avoid by not indulging in meat eating? Do we avoid any troubles? Are there any troubles coming from meat eating?
Well, there's if we're eating smoked meats and things like that, apparently it's one of the number one causes of heart disease and cardiovascular problems. So maybe that's one. So health-wise, already we're improving.
Very good. Yes, that meat is cause of many, many diseases. So someone sent us a chat. Yeah, avoid different types of cancer. Yeah. So yeah, cancer is also one of the diseases. Okay. Heart diseases, cancers, any other problems
It's,
meat is creating?
meat is heavy to digest, so problem with digestion.
Okay, yeah, digestion problem. Yeah. What about character of meat eating people? What meat eating is doing to the person? Anyone can say? Okay, karma, yes. Himani says that you kill someone, you become killed, right? You have to take birth as the animal and become killed. So yes, that's a serious
Lack of mercy and compassion.
yes, that meat eaters, they develop this aggression and yes, animalistic attitudes. Yeah, you can see that even like geographically, you can see, for example, the areas, you know, it's like India, despite of it's being influenced by Kali Yuga still, it is the, you know, #1 vegetarian country in the world. Some say it's 40%, some say it's less because some of these 40% are not strict vegetarians, whatever case may be, but still, India is ahead of the planet. Even if it is 10%, then other countries, they are like, even if it is 20 or 25%, if you calculate strictly how many vegetarians are there in India, but still, like other countries, they are max or, you know, more than 50%. India is still ahead of the world. And calculating the, you know, population in India, you can see it's like 1.25 million of population, and so even if you take quarter from that, that's really big number, right? Of people who follow vegetarian lifestyle. And so basically speaking, I'm sure many of you have been to India, and then you can see people in India are very tolerant, right? Like I never saw such a high level of tolerance. No matter what's happening, they just, what they say, chalte hai, you know, it will, doesn't matter. Don't bother, right? It will go. So, so people are very tolerant, and like, say like crimes like murder, they are very, very rare in India, hardly happening, right? That, of course, you know, like stealing and things like that, like some minor crimes are there, but, you know, violent crimes and murders, they're not very common in India at all. If you look at the statistics and percentage of violent crimes in India, it's like way, way lower than rest of the world. So this is vegetarian kind of nature, right? You can even see in animal kingdom, vegetarian animals, they tend to be much less aggressive, right? And meat-eating animals are very aggressive. And you can see the exact same pattern also amongst human beings. Like where are the biggest meat eaters are located? That's Middle East. And look how many, you know, violent crimes and how much war and killing is going on there, right? It's like we don't know when it will stop. And so yes, that meat eating creates you know, aggression, which of course is a big problem. And so yeah, And we're avoiding a lot of troubles with not eating meat. And then intoxications, I mean, that's really easy. Any troubles coming from intoxications like drinks, drugs, cigarettes, etc. Anyone can share what kind of troubles are there, which we don't take so all these troubles. Of course, health-wise. I mean,
Psychological problems, for sure.
sorry?
Psychological problems, mental issues.
What kind of problems?
Psychological.
Psychological problems. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, physical problems with health, psychological problems. Yeah, that actually, this is true because drugs and alcohol is destroying the brain faster than it is destroying rest of the organs. And so those who take intoxicants, they really destroy their brain, and brain cannot cannot heal. Whatever parts of the brain are destroyed, they're destroyed, and that's it. And so yeah, there are a lot of psychological problems, yeah, with eating. Yeah, alcohol is destroying physical health as well. And so, I mean, antisocial behavior, crime, very high, right? If someone takes drinks, drugs, then antisocial behavior becomes very common. And of course, the consequences of the antisocial behavior are not very joyful either. Okay, so then gambling. I mean, besides losing a lot of money with gambling, there is also, dependence of addiction. Gambling is a huge, huge problem, psychological problem. And yeah, someone wrote something. Let's see. Oh yeah, Christina says, I traveled through Afghanistan and Pakistan. I experienced a lot of aggression. Coming into India was peaceful. No aggression anymore. This was in 1974. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I guess everyone has the same experiences. And so then, yeah, and the biggest of all, illicit sex. Can anyone tell us what kind of problems illicit sex is creating? Long list, right?
Broken families, and also venereal disease.
Yeah, venereal diseases, sexually transmitted diseases, including AIDS, okay, that Himani says, and AIDS is killing, I think, it's killing about 1 million people a year. I mean, it's killing more people than coronavirus can ever kill. AIDS is a horrible pandemic, and no one knows how to stop it. And it came again from animals. I heard it came from monkeys, and again, sexual transmitted disease from monkey to human beings. Human beings are that crazy. So they indulge in even with animals, and so they get their reaction. Yeah, Kumud Jain also wrote anxiety or whatever previous topic. And so, yes, venereal diseases and crime, a lot of crime on this because of this, right, is committed. And yeah, abortions, huge problem. And yeah. Jealousy, people can kill each other because of jealousy, etc., etc. So yeah, unlimited problems. So we can see that just by staying away from these things, we save ourselves from lots of trouble. And most importantly, you become, yeah, children born out of wedlock, destroyed relationship, and broken families. Yeah, Himani also says that, yes, that unwanted children, that's the worst outcome actually of illicit sex, because people do sex for recreation and then they don't really want children, and the children don't feel any love. And for children, love is as important as sunshine is for plants. They cannot really properly grow without parents' love. And if parents don't love them, they grow up and they hate everything and everyone, right? And then actually you will see that, you know, look at the history of criminals, where they coming from, and basically, yeah, they come from these kind of broken families, etc., etc. No one ever loved them, so they only have hatred towards the world, and they try to retaliate for their problems in their childhood. This is what psychologists says. And oh yeah, lust is another, of course, big problem. People cannot control themselves, and so yeah, they become addicted. And so by following this, we become really free from so many troubles. And also, you become free from bad association. Because if you don't eat meat, if you don't drink, and if you are very strict in relationship with opposite sex, then what happened that those people who addicted to these things, they would not know how to relate to you. You know, it's like completely different level of consciousness. So it's like water and oil, no mixing, right? So then you become free from bad association automatically. So yeah, and that's why Prabhupada says that people who indulge in these activities can never become perfect, because with destroyed health, destroyed brain, and messed up life, how can you become perfect? It's like impossible. The principles are those interested in becoming perfect and going back to Godhead. Yeah, and then Srila Prabhupada describes more subtle, you know, we can be free from these gross sinful activities, but there can be more subtle influence. And he names kutinati, which is translated as diplomatic behavior, cannot satisfy the heart of the soul. It cannot even satisfy the body or the mind. The culprit mind is always suspicious. Therefore, our dealings should always be straightforward and approved by Vedic authorities. We treat people diplomatically, maliciously, spiritual advancement is obstructed, right? Duplicious means that you smile to the person, but you think, oh, he probably is not good. Normally, we tend to see our own faults in other people, right? That William Thackeray, in his famous Vanity Fair, says very interesting thing. He says that the entire world is a big mirror, and we actually see ourselves in this mirror. So whatever problems we see in other people, they're just reflections of our own problems. Yeah. It's like yeah, acharyas are giving example that if someone is lusty, then they see other lusty people. You know, they're only interested in other lusty people. Okay, let's see something in the chat. Yeah, benefits of the four regulative principles from Himani A for books and literature. C for chanting, D for diet, ahimsa, sattvic, vegetarian, prasadam, E for exercise, mental and physical exercise, for a clearer conscience. Our best exercise is kirtan, right? Dancing in kirtan. If you dance in kirtan, you don't need any other exercise. So our process is dancing yoga. Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, that's why it is really important to have very open and very honest relationships with others, especially with devotees. Otherwise, if we have pretentious relationships, we cannot really open our hearts to people and suspect other people that they don't have anything good. And so as a result, we isolate ourselves spiritually. Yeah. Then Srila Prabhupada says, Jiva Himsana refers to the killing of animals or to envy of other living entities. The killing of poor animals is undoubtedly due to envy of those animals. So, yeah, actually, we may avoid killing animals and eating animals, which is good, but we might still have some envy towards other people, and that envy manifests in violent attitude. It's like very interesting that sometimes this tendency is there, unfortunately, even amongst practicing devotees. Envy towards each other and clashes with each other due to, you know, this attitude. And in one community, one young woman came and, you know, devotee community, and then she associated with devotees, and devotees were quite, you know, in odds with each other. They were like clashing with each other. And then she said, it's very strange that you do not eat animals, but you are so violent against each other. You're, you know, like morally assassinating each other. How is that? You know, if you're vegetarians, you're supposed to be like much more tolerant and peaceful, etc. But yeah, unfortunately, on the gross level, we might follow things, but on the subtle level, these tendencies still remain. So we need to watch for this envy and conflicts with others. And we dedicated our previous session to this topic, and I hope most of you listen to that. So it's really important to make our life conflict free in order to advance in Krishna consciousness. And I hope you're succeeding with that. The human life, the human form is meant for the understanding of Krishna consciousness, Athato Brahma Jigyasa, for inquiring about the Supreme Brahman. In the human form, everyone has a chance to understand the Supreme Brahman. The so-called leaders of human society do not know the real aim of human life and are therefore busy with economic development. this is misleading. Every state and every society is busy trying to improve the quality of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. This human form of life is meant for more than these four animal principles. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending are problems found in the animal kingdom, and the animals have solved these problems without difficulty. Why should human society be so busy? The difficulty is that people are not able to understand simple philosophy. They think that advancement of civilization means increasing sense gratification. So yeah, basically, Prabhupada was advocating simple living and high thinking, and my spiritual master says that modern life means very complicated lives with no time to think. So, because why it is complicated? Because they become so dead serious about fulfilling animal propensities, and they have no time for even thinking about anything spiritual. That's why devotees are so rare. Very few people are interested in spiritual development. Yeah, there are many religious propagandists who do not know how the ultimate problems of life can be solved, and they also try to educate people in a form of sense gratification. This is also Jiva Himsana. Yeah. Real knowledge is not given, and religionists mislead the general populace. As far as material profits are concerned, one should know that whatever material profit one has at the time of death. Unfortunately, people do not know that there is life after death. Therefore, mundane people waste their time amassing material profit, which has to be left behind at the time of death. Such profit has no eternal benefit. Similarly, adoration by mundane people is valueless because after death one has to accept another body. Material adoration and titles are decorations that cannot be carried over to the next body. In the next life, everything is forgotten. They say that the final suit will have no pockets, right? Like there was a cartoon boarding your, flight to go to Kingdom of God, and the hostess says no luggage is allowed. You cannot take any luggage. Absolutely nothing, right? Everything has to be left behind. And it's really amazing how people work so hard for something they cannot even take with them, right? And Prabhupada says they built these huge skyscraper buildings, and this is very popular, especially in America, very ambitious people. And they build their skyscrapers and they become very proud and they brag in front of each other. They say, oh, you see that skyscraper? This is mine. Then when they die, because they want to always be, like in the vicinity of their skyscraper, Prabhupada says, then they take birth as a tree and grow next to their own skyscraper. So what's the use? And so this is the world of names. And so no matter what kind of education you've got, no matter what kind of status you've got in the society, death comes and then boom, square one again, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 2 + 2 = 4, right? You again learn, everything from scratch. So that's why it says that it's waste of time. Not to say that devotees should not study or achieve something, but devotees' purpose is different, right? What do devotees, why devotees make some effort to achieve this world? Do they make any effort to achieve something or not? Should devotees make some effort for education or for career? Yes? But why? What's the difference between materialistic people and devotees? So someone says to go back to Godhead. Well, yeah, but before we go back to Godhead,
If we practice action without in the bhakti process, there's no karma to it, so there's no fruitive result, and the aim is to achieve Godhead, and the aim is not to get a fruitive result. So then there's no karma, therefore you don't rebirth.
yeah, actually, whatever devotee does is only done for Krishna, right? That if you are well educated and you're successful in your life, in your career, in your business, people will say, yeah, look, Hare Krishnas, they're really doing well. So we should also become Hare Krishnas. But if Hare Krishnas are uneducated, I think many people will be interested in Krishna consciousness. So devotees need to show best example. And then whatever results they get, materialistic people use their money and their position for their self gratification. But then what the devotees using their money and their position for? Anyone has any idea?
Spreading
No one
dharma.
knows. Huh?
To
Spreading
support
dharma.
temples?
Yes, for Krishna.
Mm.
Very good. And then what happens to whatever you give to Krishna? Krishna reciprocates, right? It comes back unlimitedly. So that's why if devotee is only focused on pleasing Krishna, he never has any lucking in his life. Devotees are the most lucky people because they serve the luckiest person in the entire creation, right? So all these obstructions have been described in this verse as unwanted creepers. They simply present obstacles for the real creeper, the Bhakti Lata. One should be very careful to avoid all these unwanted things. Sometimes these unwanted creepers look exactly like the Bhakti creeper. They appear to be of the same size and the same species when they are packed together with the Bhakti creeper. But in spite of these, the creepers are called Upashaka. A pure devotee can distinguish between the Bhakti creeper and a mundane creeper, and he is very alert to distinguish them and keep them separate. So, if any of you had any experience in gardening, you will notice very peculiar phenomenon that if you grow, for example, tomatoes, then the weeds which grow around tomatoes, somehow nature arranged it in such a way that they look exactly like tomatoes. And if you're not expert, it's hard to tell one from the other. Or weeds next to, cucumber or whatever, they look like cucumber also. So yeah, you have to be very expert. And that's why Prabhupada says that sometimes these unwanted creepers looks exactly like the Bhakti creeper, right? And so that's why we need experts to help us distinguish the unwanted creepers, weeds, from the Bhakti plant. And who is the best expert who can tell us? That's Guru, right? Spiritual master. That's why everyone needs spiritual master in their lives to advance spiritually. Even in the material world, people need expert people, expert specialists, yeah, to achieve anything worthwhile, right? Or even for mundane education, you need good teachers and you need counselors and other experts to advance in your career. So even in the material world, this is very important, what to speak of spiritual life. If we want to achieve success in spiritual life, then we need spiritual master. We need his help. And so let's see if there are any questions so far on what we've discussed, or it's all clear. We can give you a minute if you want to ask any question, philosophical or practical also, because
Maharaj,
philosophy has to be practical. Yes.
could you explain the difference between diplomacy and conflict resolution? So these two things, they seem to be quite similar, but they're probably not. So I was wondering if you could just make a differentiation there.
Yeah. Yeah. As we said, diplomatic behavior means, I smile someone in the face, but then I don't really like the person and I'm looking for the opportunity to cause some trouble to that person. It's like Caesar and his main associate,
Yeah, Brutus.
Brutus, yeah, and then he stabbed Caesar. After he embraced him, he started stabbing him. And Caesar was shocked and he says, "You also, Brutus." So that's the very, graphic example of diplomacy, diplomatic behavior, right? Cunning behavior. So, of course, this kind of behavior creates conflicts. And so, if we speak about diplomats, professionally trained people, diplomats are not those who create diplomacy, but those who are expert diplomatic behavior and who can navigate through that.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Eden. And very good question from Umika Ansora. How does chanting the Maha Mantra help to pull out the bad creeper from the root in the heart and stop it from growing in our heart again? Yes. The example of gardening, which Lord Chaitanya is using here, is very important because when you do the gardening, few things are important. One is not to be lazy, right? If you're lazy with your garden, then all the weeds will grow and they will choke the good plants, right? So that's first and foremost thing. And therefore, when we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we pray to Krishna for devotional service. And so following regular principles and following the instructions of our Guru, we overcome laziness. And so we become very active. And these unwanted creepers, they grow because, the root is our desire, right? Because we want to enjoy in certain ways. I mean, it's very natural that we are spirit souls and our main quality is Ananda, so we want to enjoy. So because in the material world there is no enjoyment, then people create miserable situations for themselves trying to enjoy, like for example, why people drink or take drugs, because they live very difficult, very stressful life, and so they try to kind of ease their minds, because kind of drugs and drinks, they help them to release some stress, right? But then these drugs and drinks, they create more problems. So it becomes what Prahlad Maharaj says, medicine which is worse than disease, right? So people trying to solve the problem, but then they create greater problem, and they try to solve that problem, and they create even greater problem. And so their whole life is struggle like that, because they want to enjoy, but there is no enjoyment in this material world. But how come that devotees can give up relatively easily all these things? Because we have positive alternatives, right? Just there, listen to the memories of Srila Prabhupada. And one Prabhupada disciple, Janaki Devi, she says, I came to Srila Prabhupada asking, when I became a disciple, asking, how do I quit smoking? And Prabhupada said, Krishna consciousness is not about quitting this and that. It is all about positive alternative. And then he says, I'll give you such a process that you will forget your smoking altogether. And so, because we have positive alternatives for everything, right? How come that we give up meat eating so easily? Because we have prasadam. Intoxications, if you have charinamrita, if you have kirtan, it's much greater. Chanting Hare Krishna mantra, it's much greater and totally safe intoxicant, etc. So for all these sinful activities, we have spiritual alternatives, right? And this is why we can easily give up all these sinful activities. And so this is what we are doing when we chant the Hare Krishna mantra. We're praying to Krishna for giving us service, and service includes all these positive alternatives. Actually, service makes one much happier than any kind of sense gratification in this world, right? Have you experienced that? If you really made some difference in people's lives or in any situation, you manage to render some useful service, it makes you very satisfied, very happy. And this kind of happiness is not really available through sense gratification. And so that's why Krishna is there for service. This is one thing. But the other one is, the first and foremost thing in chanting is attentive chanting, right? And what I'm saying is that actually it's coming from my spiritual master, that if you chant mantra attentively, then you live your life very attentively, right? And so if you're attentive in your life, you can see your own troubles and you can address them effectively. And in the same way as if you're attentive in garden, you will pull out the weeds, but you will leave the good plants, right? But if you're not attentive, you pull out the good plant and water the weed. That can also happen. So, yeah, in order to uproot the bad plants, the only way, actually, one time Srila Prabhupada was asked, how do we overcome these, or how do we solve these problems? And Prabhupada said plainly that we can't really do anything, because it's all up to Krishna. It's all Krishna's mercy, and that's why we need to all out for Krishna. So, I mean, we can see, I'm sure in your own lives, you have seen many times that you make a lot of effort, but then results are not coming, right? Or results which come, they are opposite to what you expected. And sometimes you make no effort and things just happen in your life, right? So then we can understand that it's not really by our effort, it's by Krishna's mercy, and our efforts are only indicative of our strong desire. It's like our appeal to Krishna, right? And that's why it's really, really important to have very attentive japa every day, because this is our connection to the Supreme Lord. And as Mahatma Prabhu, Prabhupada's disciple, says, it is our ticket back to Godhead. So I hope that this is answering the first question from Umika. Then Kelly Vrindavan is asking to explain the difference in Bhakti creeper and the similar weeds in some examples. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So, yes. There are basically, these 6 weeds which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu described in this verse. Nishedachara, Jivahimsa, Kutinati Jivahimsa, Na, Labdha, Labha Puja Pratishtha, Adi means etc. There are many more. So 3 of these are belonging to the ignorance, like Nishidachara, Kutinati, Jivahimsana, unacceptable behavior and diplomacy and violence. That's all belongs to mode of ignorance. And then Labha Puja Pratishtha, that desire for gain, worship, and distinction. So these 3 belong to mode of passion. And so then Bhakti creeper can look very similar to some of the weeds. And for example, Jiva Himsana, violence towards others, right? We see, for example, Arjuna, he didn't want to become violent, but then he was encouraged by Krishna that yes, because I want you to be violent and I want you to kill, then you have to kill, right? And then we might think, because this is the nature of false ego, right? I may think, okay, I am Arjuna and some other devotees, they are acting not in the right way, and so I have to like use violence against them, right? And so that's going to be my dharma, my fighting for Krishna. But the difference between me and Krishna is, there are so many differences between me and Krishna, right? Between me and Arjuna, sorry. Because Arjuna, first of all, he was professional fighter. He was professional warrior, which I am not. And second of all, Arjuna got direct instruction from Krishna. I have not. And third, Arjuna did not really want, and Krishna had to spend a lot of time convincing him to fight, right? And nobody told me to fight, but then I choose to fight out of my own volition, right? Because I identify myself with Arjuna, something like that. And yeah, so false identification is a big problem, that we think we are better than we really are. Because actually it's a very widespread phenomenon, which is actually called the Daniel-Kruger effect. Let me see if we can find it for you. Because this is a very common thing, Kruger. Daniel-Kruger effect. So, or Dunning, or whatever, sometimes they, Dunning-Kruger effect, sometimes they explain it in different ways. Actually, there are some videos. You like to watch short video on the topic? Yes? Let's try it. Cool. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope it made some sense. You could understand the message, and maybe it's answering the question, which is a very good question from Kelly Vrindavan. Difference in Bhakti creeper and similar weeds in some examples. So yeah, we can give, for example, puja, right? Puja here, like you know, puja when in the temple they do puja for the deities, but here puja means puja for me, right? And so because I see, for example, some guru in ISKCON, some very senior devotee who has disciples and all, he can explain philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and he is chanting Hare Krishna. And I'm thinking, I also can explain philosophy of Krishna consciousness. I can also chant Hare Krishna. Why he is worshipped and why I am not worshipped? I am as good as him, right? And so then, you know, if people worshiping him will advance spiritually, people should also worship me, and they will also advance spiritually, right? So things like that. And actually, no matter how funny it sounds, there are people who think like that amongst the devotees. And so, yes, unfortunately, these weeds can look very similar to bhakti plants. So I hope it answers question from Kelly Vrindavan. And I hope that little video made sense. Yes, did it make sense? Okay. Yeah, that. Yes. Yeah, Ananga Manjari.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Dandavat Pranam.
Dhanyavad.
Maharaj, like in Bhagavad Gita, it is told, na, Pandita Shama Darshina. So the
Yes.
sober man or the Mahatma, they see the Paramatma in every living entity. So how to relate this in our practical life? Like whenever we have so much problem through other creatures, other living entities. So that time we get angry or we just react. So how to understand that text, Maharaj? We should react or we should simply keep quiet and just having their torture or whatever they are doing with us. We should just, like Trinada Pisunichana Mahaprabhu told. So in our practical life, how to implement that, Maharaj?
Yes, thank you. Very good question. And my question to you is, have you taken part in our previous session, previous class?
No, Maharaj. Sorry.
Okay, yes. But asking because we addressed exactly this question in the previous class. I don't know if recordings are available. You can listen to them because we spoke about how to compare ourselves with other people and understand the unity of everyone, of all living beings, because physically we are different, and in terms of education and background, there are so many differences between us. But what is common, that we are all spirit souls. And spirit souls, they have the same desire. And primarily there are three desires every spirit soul has. And one desire, and first desire, is that everybody wants to live forever. Nobody wants to die, right? Because we're meant for that. And second desire, desire for knowledge and understanding. And third desire is desire for happiness. So, and therefore, we can see that, you know, like the greatest happiness comes from love. And so I want to be loved. I want to be appreciated. Like recently I came across this joke, you know, there are so many funny ways how to respond to how are you, right? It's like when you ask how are you, normally people say I'm fine, right? But there are so many alternative ways to respond to how are you. And one alternative way I found is, wow, it's amazing you've noticed me, right? Because normally people, they don't really care about each other. But then someone, well, normally people kind of asking, how are you, just not because they, you know, like another funny response is, would you like to hear long or short version of the answer? Or like that. Or, you know, the one I'm using is that no complaints, no one wants to listen anyway. So like that. So everybody wants attention. Everybody wants care. So I want these things. I want to be listened. I want to be understood. I want to be cared for. Other people, they want the same thing, right? Everybody wants to be happy. Nobody wants to suffer, because these are the desires of the soul. And so we gave very good exercise, and you can find it online. It's called compassion exercise, developing compassion. And exercise was, I used one from Avatar company, and exercise is called Just Like Me. And so that exercise is helping us to meditate on the oneness of all of us as spiritual beings. So please, I hope that the recordings are available. Maybe Padmanabh Nityananda Prabhu can comment on this. If there are recordings from previous sessions, and if you listen to that, it gives you very elaborate explanation how to develop that Pandita Samadarshana gradually, how to see oneness of all souls, at least oneness of all human beings. We can start with human beings and then gradually understand the oneness of all souls. Okay, so do we have anything else? Any other questions, comments?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, I met you
welcome.
in Puri Parikrama last year, 2018. You were in the Puri Parikrama, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There I met you in Haridas Thakur's, what is that named? There you
Samadhi.
gave.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Nice
Oh,
lecture.
that what do you call it? Siddha Bakul. His bhajan.
Siddha Bakul. Yeah. Correct,
Yes.
Maharaj. There you gave nice lecture last year. Hari Bol, Maharaj.
Thank you. So let's see if anything else is there we can discuss.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, just wanted to just wanted to ask for a bit of elaboration, really, on one of the 6 weeds that you mentioned on Kutinati, on diplomacy. Usually in situations such as work, when we have to deal with people or certain situations where we have to be diplomatic, we have to explain certain things in a way that might not hurt anyone else's feelings. I mean, that's my understanding of what diplomacy is.
Mm-hmm.
How can we relate this to this being like an unwanted creeper as such, the act of diplomacy? Because I thought we're trying to be like, we're trying to spare someone's feelings by telling them something in a not so harsh way.
Yeah, I mean, there is a difference between the diplomacy, which is explained in here, and just politeness or cultural dealings. These are different things. If you don't want to tell people something just because it will kind of hurt their feelings, and of course, British culture is famous for, gentleman behavior. Like British people will never say you're wrong or things like that. They would say, "Oh, that's very interesting point of view," right, etc. Um, so deliberate understatement is the British trademark or British hallmark, which is good. You don't want to hurt other people's feelings unnecessarily, because acharyas like Bhaktivinoda Thakur are explaining that foolish people, by not controlling their tongues, by not controlling their speech, by their tongues, they create unnecessarily enemies amongst them, around themselves, right? And actually, sharp tongue can make a cut which is much more painful than the sword, right? And so yes, it is good that at least in British culture, in British tradition, there is this culture of politeness. And yeah, Prabhupada said that disciples can be recognized because they are real gentlemen. So he was referring to that Vaishnava culture should be the culture of gentlemen, should be the polite culture, and that's why Bhagavad Gita 7:15 is explaining austerity of speech. Anudvega karam vakyam satya priya hitam chayat swadhyaya vyasanam chayva manmaya tapa uchate. That austerity of speech is consisting of the words, saying the words which are truthful, pleasing, and not disturbing others, and beneficial, and also recitation of Vedic scriptures, right? Basically, yeah, whatever we say has to be based on Vedic wisdom. And yeah, austerity of speech is capacity of saying things which are truthful, but which are not disturbing other people. Say maybe it's a bitter truth, but austerity of speech is ability to say the bitter truth in a sweet way, and so that would actually benefit people, right? So that's very important, and that's not diplomatic behavior, because we are acting as well-wishers of people, which is exact Vaishnava attitude. That's why Prabhupada was signing the letters, "Your ever well-wisher," because Vaishnavas, they're not envious of anyone, and they always wishing everyone well. But diplomatic behavior is ill-motivated, attitude towards people when we're plotting against someone, when we try to harm other person, when we try to destroy other person, but we smile and we say nice things so that person would not suspect us. So that is diplomacy. And I hope that we made that difference clear. Yes?
Yes, Prabhu, thank you. Thank you very much, Maharaj.
You're welcome. All right, let's see if we have any other questions or comments or maybe complaints, if there are any. All right, so let's see. Are there any instructions from our Padmanabh Nityananda Prabhu, our host? Everyone seems to be satisfied. Let's see if any of you learned something useful for yourself. You can also share that if you wish, if you did anything. So something which you didn't know and something which was useful from today, from today's session. You can unmute your microphone and share with us. Okay, so we should conclude that no one ever learned anything new or useful, and yeah, you knew all of this anyway, so it was really boring and not really interesting and not practical at all, right? Not boring at all. So yeah, Himani, you want to share if you learned anything which was useful for you?
Thank you, Maharaj. This was a very, very inspiring class, and it was really interesting to learn about the 6 weeds or the Upashaka Gana. And it was really interesting to see in terms of like these creepers and how they tend to actually grow quite, quite fast in our daily lives. And sometimes, for me, sometimes these creepers actually pose as a obstacle, as an obstruction to my spiritual, like to my sadhana. So it was really interesting to learn about this. Thank you, Maharaj.
All right, thank you very much. And your name is?
Himani.
Himani. Okay, thank you, Himani. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. The talk was not boring at all. I was just thinking of, there's just so much. I was thinking of which one to bring up. So I've got one now, and it's about the creepers as well. I really liked the gardening metaphor, because a lot of the time we can't see those weeds, and it's to be able to, when it first sprouts, to really just be able to see it and instantly pick that out. That's a skill that I'll be trying to apply to my life following the seminar. Just because sometimes I find it comes too late. Like by the time it's already, it's already a tree, and then then I realize. So I think I'll be trying to pick out those weeds and to know which ones are good weeds and which ones are bad weeds, and to pick out as early and as young as possible.
Good. Thank you, Eden. Yeah, and that video we showed, I think it was teaching us very useful concepts as well, because it was helping us to understand why we are not, to the most part, we're not capable of recognizing our shortcomings, our own problems. And there was a recommendation, very useful recommendation at the end, if you remember, about it. So what to do? How can we recognize our own problems, and how can we solve our own problems? Anyone remembers? What was the recommendation at the very end of the video? Two things: how to recognize and how to solve our problems. Okay, we can remind you, because these two are really important for all of us. And these are universal. They can be applied in professional life, they can be applied in spiritual life. And so the first one was seek a feedback, right? That's why we need spiritual master, that's why we need spiritual mentors, because we often fail to see our own problems. And so it's really important that somebody else can help us to recognize our problems. And if we seek a feedback ourselves, normally we're prepared to kind of accept it, right? Then of course we need feedback from someone who is expert enough not to, to provide constructive rather than destructive feedback. And yeah, constructive feedback means positive alternative. I remember in Australia, we were traveling at one low-cost airlines, and of course they only have basics. And so the was saying very interesting things like there is no onboard entertainment, right? So he would say that we have plenty of entertainment on board. If you want to be entertained, just look at someone who is sitting next to you and entertain yourself, right? Rather than peering at the screen, just have association with live people. And he said, in terms of smoking on board, we have very nice policy. If you want to have a smoke, just step out of the airplane and smoke at the fresh air, and that's it. And so, like he was saying about things which were missing or which were restricted, restricted sense gratification, but he was giving it in a very positive and funny way. So in the same way, that's called expert, right? Expert can show us positive alternative and make it very easy for us. Expert is one who makes very difficult things easy, right? And layman is one who is making easy things very difficult. And so, yeah, we need to seek feedback, but make sure that you're seeking feedback from the expert. If you want any help, like if you need a brain surgery, make sure that someone who is doing that is really expert, otherwise it may end up in big trouble. Like there is one joke about one patient waiting for surgery, and the surgeon comes and he says, so how are you doing? And then the patient says, "Doctor, I'm so nervous. I'm so stressed out." "So why are you so stressed out?" "Well, because this is my very first surgery in life. I never had any surgeries." And then surgeon says, "You don't need to be stressed out, and you don't need to worry, because I am your surgeon. I will be doing your surgery myself, and I can tell you the secret that this will be my very first surgery in life as well, and I'm absolutely peaceful and calm. And so you should look at me and take my example and be very peaceful and calm." So I doubt if it helped really. But this helps us to understand, if you really want feedback and help, seek someone who has very high level of expertise, right? Whether in professional or spiritual life. Do not allow laymen mess you up. So this is first thing. And second is seek for knowledge. Knowledge is very important. And so professional knowledge is important, and spiritual knowledge is even more important, because professional knowledge can help you to achieve some success in this life, but spiritual knowledge can give you permanent benefit, which goes way beyond this lifetime. So these two things are very important, which came at the end of the video. Okay. Anyone else wants to share? Thank you, Eden. Or everybody else shared?
I would like to add something. Thank you, Maharaj. That was really, really nice class. I just want to say the last thing you said is so important, because I remember myself, I'm self-taught. I love reading books on literally everything. But I realized once that if I don't seek for a person who is more advanced, then I don't know anything about my progression, if I'm making progression, or actually if I'm in the same place. So that was, I believe is so important to find someone who can check my level, who can check my knowledge, who can lead me, maybe lead the path, maybe tell me, give me some advice, or literally check my knowledge. So that was really important for me. So thank you, Merchant.
Thank you, Isabella. Okay, so anyone else? We still have 12 minutes left, and I think if you don't want to share or ask anything, Nityananda Prabhu will just let us sit and stare at each other for the next 12 minutes.
I've got a quick question, Maharaj.
Okay, go for it.
So we were talking about how we should seek advice and direction from Guru.
Yeah.
So as somebody who's just started, I haven't been initiated yet, and I don't have a Guru in that sense. And also just day to day, I don't get to interact with a devotee that much. So how do I make decisions and make daily decisions until I next meet a devotee to talk to and be inspired? So so those decisions in between, what should I be doing, and should I be acting at all, or should I be just doing what I'm currently doing?
Well, I'm sure you're doing well, because you are practicing Krishna consciousness. And in terms of association with devotees, I mean, modern communication channels allow us to connect with devotees even in the absence of physical association, like we're doing now. So yeah, if simple decisions, you have your own intelligence, which you can rely on. But if there are any like major key decisions and you have doubts about making them, so it's always good to check with those devotees who are much more senior and much more expert than yourself. And then in time, you can accept one of those senior expert devotees as your personal spiritual guide, spiritual master, and get initiated, etc.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Eden. Haribol. Okay. 9 minutes to go. So 9 minutes of silence.
Hare Krishna.
9 minutes of meditation. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj, for the very insightful class. If there's not any other questions, then maybe we can end.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can decide.
Yeah.
If there are no questions, then everyone can use the extra 9 minutes for whatever they wanted to use them for.
Yeah. Regarding the recordings, so for the last one, unfortunately, we didn't record that, but we have recorded today's class, which I'll make available. And if you would like a copy, I can send to Mahaprabhu. Prabhu.
Yeah, sure. And yeah, that this question from Ananga Manjari, I think is important, and what I can do is to send, to put the link to the website for the compassion exercise to the chat. Yeah, and I can also give you the reference to the Bhagavad Gita verse, which speaks exactly about this concept, which is very interesting. It's not exactly what I was looking for, but it's something very similar. So this, you can look this up, compassion exercise. And this is the reference to Bhagavad Gita 632. All right, so yes, Padmanabh Nityananda Prabhu. So this is for Ananga Manjari. If you want to copy this from the chat and check it out.
Yeah, I'll send that on to Mataji. Okay, thank you, Maharaj, again for answering Mataji's question.
Okay, you're welcome. Hare Krishna.
There's
Thank
another
you for
question that's
organizing
just
it.
come up.
Somebody else wants to ask anything?
Oh, sorry, someone's just sent me a question. It says,
Yeah.
I heard that material issues cannot be solved materially, should be done by spiritually. they can be helped by material means sometimes?
Yeah.
Someone's just sent a question.
Can they be helped by material means?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like they say that money can never make you happy, but it can make things easier in your life. So, in the same way, material things, they are not solutions on their own, but we can use material things in the service of Krishna. That is the distinction between us and other spiritual religious groups, because some religions, they are only focusing on material things. For them, they only serve God because God is the Father in heaven who provides them with everything they want, and that's it. Like one religious group, they even say that we will be, like as a result of our spiritual practice, we'll be living heaven on earth. And so they have these very colorful booklets. They show these booklets about heaven on earth, how, like if you join their group, how lucky you will be that you will be the chosen one who will be living in heaven on earth. And I became like a little bit curious, and I said, it's all good, heaven on earth, but where is God in the picture? I don't see God in the picture. And he says, there will be no God. God will give us heaven on earth to enjoy, and that's it. So that's the attitude of many, many religious groups. Like they want kingdom of God without God, right? They believe in God, but they don't want God to be connected to their lives at all. They just want God as, kind of sugar daddy or whatever, just to provide them with everything they want and leave them alone to enjoy. So that's one side, one and very prominent kind of side of religious / spiritual, practices people follow just for their sense gratification. But there are other groups who are trying to kind of renounce sense gratification because they recognize that it is stopping them from spiritual development. It's a trap, right? Maya is a big trap. So they try to become free from Maya's trap, but their goal is to become godlike, to become very powerful like gods. So these people are called Mayavadis or Brahmavadis, etc. And so it's like these two sides, even in religious spiritual lives, people are interested only in sense gratification, and other people, they are interested in dry renunciation. But Krishna consciousness is not going into either of these extremes. Krishna consciousness is using spiritual knowledge and focused on pleasing Krishna, and for Krishna's pleasure, we want to use everything. Money is Lakshmi. It is the energy of pleasure. And people use money for their pleasure, but we use money for Krishna's pleasure, right? And high position in the society, people use for making themselves famous, but devotees, if they get high position in the society, they use it for making Krishna famous. And power, if people in the material world, they get power, they just use it for their self-aggrandizement. But devotees, if they get power, they use it in serving Krishna. Again, right? So in this way, devotees, they don't want anything for themselves, but they use everything for Krishna. And so this is how we use material things in serving Krishna. I hope it's answering the question.
Yes, thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah, welcome.
Okay.
Right, and it's exactly 4, even 4
o'clock.
or 1. We used all the time.
Yeah, so thanks again. Thank you once again, Maharaj, for taking the time.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, all of you, and Padmanabh Nityananda Prabhu especially for organizing and running the course.
No, not at all, Maharaj. And hopefully we'll be back next week with some more courses. So
Okay.
we'll be advertising them soon. Okay, so Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Bol. All the best. Stay safe and focused on serving Krishna. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Welcome.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.